the lost generation. They born between 1883 and 1900. This generation came of age during World War I and the roaring 1920s, but they're often characterized by their sense of disillusionment and their response to the horrors of war. The term lost generation was coined by writer Gertrude Stein and famously used by Ernest Hemingway to describe their disillusionment with the values and norms of society after experiencing the devastating impact of the war. They were the ones who saw the world as fundamentally changed by the violence and chaos of war. They were defined by their cynicism and disillusionment, as well as by their literary and artistic contributions. The 1920s was a period of intense cultural change, and the lost generation was at the forefront. Here's an impactful stat. Despite their disillusionment, many members of the lost generation went on to create some of the most influential art and literature of the 20th century, shaping modernist literature and art in profound ways. The greatest generation. Let's talk about the greatest generation, those born between 1901 and 1927. These people were shaped by not one, but two of the most devastating global events in history: World War I and the Great Depression. And of course, as if that weren't enough, many of them went on to fight in World War II. The term greatest generation comes from their incredible perseverance through adversity. They survived the Dust Bowl, global economic collapse, and political instability that shaped the 1920s and 30s. When war broke out, millions of men enlisted, while women and those at home kept the economy moving by working in factories, contributing to what was known as the home front. This generation built the modern world we know today. After the war, they came home and ushered in an era of prosperity in the 1950s. The concept of the American dream was largely born from their sacrifices and their belief that hard work, patriotism, and determination could overcome anything. The silent generation. Next, we have the silent generation, born between 1928 and 1945. If the greatest generation is remembered for their courage during war, the silent generation is known for their quiet resilience. This generation grew up during World War II and the Korean War, witnessing not only international conflicts but also a rapidly changing post-war economy. Many were too young to fight in WWII, but they watched their parents rebuild the world after the war. The economy was starting to boom, but they learned to be cautious and thrifty, having witnessed their parents struggle through the Depression and wartime rationing. As children, they listened to the radio and later witnessed the dawn of television. This generation didn't have the rebellious spirit that would later define their children, the baby boomers. They also played an essential role in laying the groundwork for social change, even if they didn't always take center stage. The silent generation gave rise to early civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., and were at the forefront of early activism, but they often did so without making too much noise. Baby boomers. Born in the post-World War II boom, baby boomers are the generation most associated with prosperity and stability. Born between 1946 and 1964, boomers came into a world of economic growth. Suburbia expanded, new technologies like television and home appliances made life easier, and the middle class grew. The boomers were the first generation to grow up with the idea of the nuclear family being the ideal, and for many, this was a time of unprecedented opportunity. College education became more accessible, and many entered stable jobs with the promise of pensions and security. But as they age into the 1960s and 70s, baby boomers became known for their rebellious spirit. They were the generation that said no to the establishment and fought for civil rights, women's liberation, and against the Vietnam War. They were the ones leading Woodstock, protesting at university campuses, and embracing the countercultural movements that defined the 60s. Think about the powerful shifts they contributed to: feminism, sexual liberation, and a growing environmental movement that still echoes today. Here's a mind-blowing stat. As of 2020, baby boomers control around 53% of the U.S. wealth. This wealth, combined with their political clout, has made them a highly influential generation, even as they approach retirement. Generation X. Now we get to Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. These are the children of baby boomers, but they didn't experience the same prosperity their parents did. Instead, they grew up during a time of political unrest, economic recessions, and the rise of divorce rates. Many Gen Xers came home to empty houses as both parents worked. This led to a sense of independence that became a hallmark of the generation. They were the first to grow up with personal computers, and they witnessed the birth of the internet. But it was all new technology was advancing quickly, and they were just beginning to understand its potential. This generation also rebelled, but in a different way. Where boomers had Woodstock, Gen X had grunge. They embraced punk rock, alternative music, and an attitude that rejected mainstream culture. This is the generation of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and skateboard culture. Millennials. Born between 1981 and 1996, millennials are the generation that truly came of age in the digital era. If Generation X witnessed the birth of technology, they grew up with it as an integral part of their lives. The internet, social media, and smartphones became their playgrounds. This generation faced the challenges of entering a job market ravaged by the Great Recession. As a result, many millennials have experienced delays in achieving traditional milestones, like homeownership and starting families, due to significant student loan debt and a competitive job market. But millennials are also known for their entrepreneurial spirit. They were the first generation to fully embrace the gig economy, taking on side hustles, freelancing, and adapting to a new way of working. They prioritize work-life balance, experiences over material possessions, and have become champions of mental health awareness. Generation Z. Born between 1997 and 2012, is the first generation that's never known a world without the internet. They've grown up completely immersed in technology, and for many, their first memories involve smartphones, social media, and streaming. What sets Gen Z apart from millennials is their adaptability. They're digital natives, meaning they can navigate a world filled with apps, platforms, and constant connectivity with ease. But this constant connection has also had its downsides. Studies show that Gen Z reports higher levels of anxiety and depression than previous generations, likely due to the pressures of social media and the ever-present comparison culture. Gen Z is also known for being socially aware and politically active, particularly on issues like climate change, racial equality, and labor rights. They have no patience for the status quo and are willing to use their platforms to push for change. Generation Alpha. We arrive at Generation Alpha, born from 2013 onward. These kids are still growing up, but they're doing so in a world of unprecedented technological advancement. AI, machine learning, and virtual reality are becoming part of everyday life for them. What's fascinating is that they're the first generation to be born entirely in the 21st century. They're growing up with smart homes, autonomous vehicles, and the kind of technology we could only dream of a few decades ago. They're also likely to live in a world where AI plays a huge role in both their education and careers. But with all this innovation comes challenges. Generation Alpha will have to figure out how to balance screen time with real-world interaction, how to manage mental health in a constantly connected world, and how to navigate careers that don't even exist yet. Futuristic Generation. Let's peer into the future with the futuristic generation, those born from 2025 onward. These children are growing up in a world that is likely to be dominated by advanced AI, quantum computing, and space exploration. This generation will likely experience life in ways that are hard for us to fully imagine. They might attend virtual schools where lessons are taught by AI tutors and work in jobs that don't yet exist. They may live in smart cities where every aspect of their daily lives is interconnected and automated. With advancements in genetic engineering and personalized medicine, the futuristic generation might see significant changes in health and longevity. They could grow up with the ability to edit genes, potentially eradicating certain diseases and extending lifespans. However, with these advancements come ethical questions and challenges. This generation will need to navigate issues related to privacy, data security, and the potential for AI dominance. The way they address these challenges will shape the future of humanity.